It is your Classic Metal Show right here on the ClassicMetalShow.com from the Wicked Sensation release. That is the Lynch Mob with Hell Child, and a guy who's a hell child on the bass, somebody that I admire and I like having on the show. I want to welcome back to the Classic Metal Show, Anthony Esposito. Welcome back to the show there, Anthony.
Well, thank you so much for having me back on your show. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, man. Well, listen, dude, we had you on the show. I think it was last year. We played a couple of songs. You were involved with Frank Farrar with Pisser, and we played a couple of your songs, and you guys called into the show live, and I didn't hear a whole lot about it after that. So, what's going on with Pisser?
Well, I'm no longer affiliated with Pisser.
Okay. Well, that answers that question.
It sort of ended, we parted ways last summer, and that was that.
Okay. Any particular reason why, or it just didn't work out, or creative differences, or what?
Yeah, I guess we can use that blanket term, creative differences. that would seem fitting right here.
Right. Well, that's cool. But being that you've been around a long time, Anthony, and you've worked with a lot of notable musicians in your career, I'm sure there's no shortage of work. And we were talking off air, and you got a management company now, so you're doing things outside of actually performing. So what's going on with that?
Well, it's an umbrella company I have with Joel Sosa. And it's called Obscenic Arts. And the company, we have my recording studio on a ranch in the middle of Pennsylvania, which is sort of like the hub for the company. And we also manage bands and record them. I produce them, and we're always looking for new talent and developing new talent, and then trying to take them to labels and get them record deals and stuff, It's come a long way, and actually Pisser was one of the bands that we were managing.
Okay.
Which I'm no longer in anymore, but
right.
they're still affiliated with us.
Sure. Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Anthony, because this is something we talk about on the show quite often because of the changing times and whatnot, and in this day and age of the digital technology and downloading, and, there's just no $1 million record deals anymore. And, bands are just out there trying to just make it. And, they're lucky if they break even at the end of the night. What prompts you to try to, manage an up and coming band and whatnot? Is it the hope that you might land on one that becomes the next big thing, or are you just do it out of the love of it, or what's the motivation behind doing working with bands who, obviously need the promotion?
Well, I think music is in a really bad spot right now. It's probably, if you look at it, it's probably the dark ages of music. We haven't had a band that mattered in music since Nirvana. I can't imagine who was the chapter of music in the glorious history of music book following Nirvana. I don't think anyone's come along that has done anything that's moved anybody. I think the whole computer thing ruined music. A lot of people think that it was horrible the way that the labels used to handle it, and I agree with that. But the labels did provide a funnel of filtering talent, and sort of the cream did rise to the top in that old format, and new things were found, and they were brought to the masses and people, and there was opportunity for every wave of music to come and reach fruition and then get replaced by the next one, and so on and so forth. Now it's just seems like everyone just can record in their basement and post it online, and you have this unfiltered process that there's a lot of stuff that is not really that good, I think, and it just basically clogs the way for some of the good stuff to reach to the forefront. And there aren't music stores anymore. It's all downloads. There aren't really, radio doesn't really play anything that's not safe. And so artists are in this position where it's almost better to be an older artist that had a history, because you can tour on your past catalog and still generate income on touring, and touring generates income on merch, and you could sort of carve out a substantial living, basically dependent upon how you did in the past. If you had more hits, you'll play bigger venues now still, and you'll get more money to play those bigger venues, and you'll have more people in the seats to buy merchandise. Whereas if you had a smaller career, like, i.e., stupid example, Lynch Mob, not really the Van Halen level of success, so they still have the market of playing smaller places and selling smaller merch and still making some sort of living, but it's really hard for a new band to garner a following big enough to warrant making money touring, and that's really the only way, because it's really hard to get airplay. It's really hard to sell CDs, and now it's not even selling records, it's selling songs, and iTunes royalty rate is horrible, and so you're really not gonna, I mean, who would have ever thought that in this day and age we've come to a situation where bands almost have to break by placing their songs in video games and on commercials.
Right.
Those were, back in the day, those were taboo. You would never think of The Who associating one of their songs with a television commercial. I remember the big stink when Michael Jackson owned the Beatles catalog and sold Revolution to a Nike commercial. There was a big stink about that, and that it was taboo, and it was like, using the gospel to promote a sneaker brand, But nowadays, that's one of the few ways that a new band, if they get on an Apple commercial, suddenly everybody goes to the internet and finds out what that song was on that commercial by Googling the commercial, and then there's sudden downloads, But it's just, I'm really, really sad. It's a sad situation, the state of music right now. But for people like me that are sort of cursed with it, that they have to make music in order to basically live, and I don't mean live by provide money, I mean live by, like, if I go a day without picking up my instrument or recording a band or something, I really get in a bad mood.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the whole situation has changed, and it really stinks for these younger up-and-coming artists, because, yeah, they have all the ways in the world to get their music out like every other band, but those avenues are so crowded and so overflowing, the arteries are so carotid with fat, that it's very difficult for anyone to hear your voice. They have to wallow through 80 billion bands to get to one good one,
Right. So I couldn't agree with more with everything you just said there. So as someone who works with bands and records them and represents them and whatnot, what's in it for you, being that the landscape is so bleak?
The moment of godliness, and any musician will be able to tell you this, that there's a moment of godliness when you come up with a new song and you think, oh my God, that's awesome. And you get this feeling like you're proud of this new thing that created, and you're not really thinking about, oh my God, it's going to sell 1 million copies. Oh my God, it's going to buy me a house. You're just really psyched with that guitar lick or that vocal melody, or that song just makes you proud that you created it. It wasn't here yesterday, and you just created it just now, and now it exists. And that's what keeps real musicians going, that moment of feeling like a god, that you've created something that will be around, and I really enjoy being part of that moment with other bands as well in the producer's format. Like, I really enjoy taking a brand new band and maybe showing them something that they didn't know they could do, or a strength that they had that I get to bring out of them and go, wow, you do that really well. Do it again. You know, like it's fun being part of that process and creating something. Nobody creates music anymore really to make money, to sell a million copies, because nobody does. Unless you're an American Idol star or you're Taylor Swift or you're Rihanna, you're not selling a million albums.
Right.
It's not going to happen, and you're not going to get airplay. So in a way, that kind of frees you from having to try to worry about doing that, because it's not going to happen anyway.
So it's just basically a work of passion for you.
Yeah, I very much enjoy being around musicians and creating with them and helping to develop them for whatever my 2 cents is worth, and I enjoy it. You know, I'm very happy and I'm very blessed in my life that I get to do that.
Excellent.
And eat.
Well, good. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Well, Anthony, you're coming off of a stint with a quote unquote legendary guitarist, Ace Frehley, and
Rock and Roll Hall of Famer.
Yeah, and you did your time there, and I know that when you were on the show last time, you were kind of maybe a little bit bitter, because of maybe the treatment or whatnot. So did you just end things with Ace, or?
Well, I never ended it with him. He ended it with me. I was sort of just shocked.
Were you singing "Shock Me" when?
No, I was just it's just kind of like something. It did come out of the blue, to me, on my part anyway, and I was just shocked at just the way that the whole thing was handled. But you know what? It's not a band. The name on the marquee is not my name. I had the privilege of playing next to him for several years, and nobody's going to ask for a refund when they go to the show and see I'm not playing bass. And right. I know my part. I know where my position was in the whole thing. I was just kind of taken aback by the way that it ended and the way that I was treated at the end. But it's okay, it's his business and it's his career and it's his everything, and he makes the decisions and he calls the shots, and that was the way it was. I understand. I understand my part of it. Actually, we texted each other like a week ago, and I guess I was just like, hey, bro, Detroit Rock City came on the radio, and so I was like, I saw it as a sign to text him, so I texted him, hey, how you doing, Poppy? Good luck down in Australia, and miss you, bro. And he texted me back like a split second later, hey, I miss you too, what's going on? And he's asking me about the snow. He likes to rub it in my face that he's a Southern Cali boy now, and I'm like, sub-0 degrees here with snowfall, and he's like, 80 degrees.
Yeah, sure. Well,
but I mean, I think everything's fine,
Good. Well, kind of, I don't know if you're just like the bad luck bassist or whatever, because that almost reminds me of, the story you told us here on the show about, how George went off and did that Smoke This thing when you were thinking you guys were getting geared up to make a new album. And he goes, oh, it's already done. All the parts are done already.
Yeah, that was after the 97 reunion that I went back for, and that only lasted like 6 months. And yeah, it's kind of, I guess that that kind of comes par with the course when you play with guys that are like, George or Ace or whatever, where they're big names and they're kind of solo acts, even though they work under sometimes a band concept, they're still kind of just solo artists. And sometimes you kind of forget, kind of like, and then you think, oh yeah, there is no job security in this business.
Sure. Well, you're on to work with another legendary guitarist, Jakey Lee. You joined Red Dragon Cartel here about a week ago, and are you? Would this be considered replacing Greg on bass here? Did he just leave?
I don't really know what it is or what it would be considered. Greg's a phenomenal bass player. And I remembered him from the Badlands days, and there's a lot of mutual admiration between Lynch Mob and Badlands back in those days. And he left for a personal reason that he would be the one to ask. I don't want to speak for him or out of turn on why he left or whatnot.
Well, regardless of that, take us back to when you became friends with Jakey, and how did you get this gig, and what made them think of, hey, let's call up Anthony. Let's see what he's doing. How did this all come about?
I was friends with Ray Gillen, Badlands singer, in the '80s in New York. We were both growing up in New York, and we'd always bump into each other at the Cat Club and Limelight. He always had the biggest smile and the biggest warm hello and big hug, and he went on to do Badlands with Jake, and I joined Lynch Mob after the first Badlands record came out, and when I joined Lynch Mob, I had to relocate to Phoenix because that's where George and Nick were based already, and I was out in Phoenix, and we were working on writing the Wicked Sensation record, and Ray called me, and Badlands was playing in Phoenix, and he's like, hey man, come down sound check and hang out. So I went down and hung out, and that's when I met Jake and Greg and all those guys. And then fast forward a couple of years later, we did those rock and jock racing things for MTV where they put a bunch of musicians in cars right before the Indy cars. And,
I remember that.
Just let them free on the track. We sort of just killed each other. It was like bumper cars. But I did one or two of the Grand Prix races with Jake, and that was like we had to go to school to get certified, and then they were like 4-day events where we did charities and went to children's hospitals and did all-star jams for charity and stuff. So I got to hang out with him a lot when I did those and got to know him well. But when he was recording this record, Red Dragon Cartel record in Las Vegas, my son was working at the studio, and he was involved in like an engineering capacity on this album, and him and Jake became really, really good friends, and my son was actually helping record Jake's like guitar parts and stuff like that. And so I was standing next to my son like a week ago, and he got a text from Jake saying, and Jake was like, hey, you think your dad would be interested in playing bass in Red Dragon Cartel? So my son just like looked over at me. He's like, want to play with Jake? I'm like, yeah, sounds great. And that was that. Next day, Jake called me and texted me the tour dates and the set list, and we have first rehearsal next week. So
nice. Well, good for you. That's this business is very incestuous.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's certain pockets of incestuousness between certain bands. Like, certain bands kind of pool together and trade off, like, it would be an interesting kind of family tree if anyone mapped it out, Yeah,
absolutely. Well, the sad thing about the business, I guess for some people it makes it exciting, but for me it's kind of sad, is that, you guys, obviously the ones who came up through the ranks in the the late 80s, early 90s, when the music business was still happening, and as you kind of illustrated at the beginning of this interview, that you were lucky enough to come up in a time when you could be involved with a band and actually have a career in music before it all kind of the bottom fell out. But
right.
But what kind of makes me sad, especially with some of my favorite bands and some of my favorite musicians and acts, is the drama that goes on between, the creative forces, if you will. I mean, every week, say like a website like a Blabbermouth or a Brave Word wouldn't have any content if there wasn't some kind of drama going on between some band or bandmate or former band member, this
Correct.
and that. And I guess the point I was going to make is that you're no stranger to the drama within band situations.
No, I've been in the middle of some dramas, and I've been secondary to some major dramas and legendary dramas. I've been kind of on the ripples of. It's kind of like, in this day and age, the divorce rate's 85%, and that's only between two people. So try to make it work between four.
Sure.
And the more years you're married, the more things and issues are going to pop up, and the harder it is to keep it straight.
Right. Well, let me ask you something. As a musician who's witnessed that or even been in the middle of it, I know there's a whole bunch of reasons why things happen between people and bands and whatnot, but if you could,
it's never the bass player, by the way. It's never the bass player.
if you could boil it down to say one or two reasons strife within a band situation happen,
that's easy. It's either money or women. Those two are 90% of band fights or disagreements or parting ways or whatever is usually about money or about a woman.
Really? Well, give me a good example of the woman thing. I mean, I understand the money part.
Yoko Ono.
Well, yeah, come on. I mean, that's
but that's how when it started that way. I mean, there's tons of it. Look at the Ramones. There was the girl between Joey and Johnny, and that started that whole riff for decades. I mean, it's always, or it's about money. You're making too much. You're making too little. You're doing this. You're that. Why are you getting publishing? Why? It's always the arguments are always the same. It's usually maybe 80% of the time, not 90. 80% of the time, it's one of those two issues or both.
Wow. Very interesting. So it's money or women. So I believe it was Paul Stanley who said it best way back in the early 80s that if you're going to be successful in this business, you got to get rid of your women.
I'm not going to touch that comment. I'm not touching that comment with a 10-foot pole.
Well,
come on. The Kiss never had women problems. Come on.
Of course they did.
Of course they did. Every band has.
Well, regardless of that, now that you're a part of this Red Dragon cartel, what do you envision for the band and yourself? I mean, obviously being able to go out and play with Jay.
I just think I'm excited so much to play again. I haven't played live in almost 2 years. The last time I played was with Ace, and I'm just super excited to play that first gig April 16th in Miami and look over my left shoulder and see Jake on the other side of the stage. I mean, there's this feeling, especially for a bass player, when there's not a rhythm guitar player, like when I was playing with George and now with Jake, when they go for the solo and you're left with the drums to carry the entire song underneath them and provide for them the foundation for them to do the thing that makes them them and that people pay the ticket price to go see, and you're providing that foundation for them to do that on top of, that's the greatest feeling in the world. And I've just been lucky and blessed to get to do that with guys like George or Ace or Jake there's so many, I've been lucky. My career, I've been lucky. And I'm super excited to go on the road again, and I'm super excited to play with somebody on the caliber of Jake. I mean, it's an amazing thing to go out with a guy who's as good as anybody out there, if not better.
Yeah, well, I'm going to agree with you there. I mean, that, like I said, you've had an opportunity to play with some very, very notable names in the business, and you as one bass player out of all the bass players in the business, having those opportunities, I would imagine that is a thrill.
Yeah, it's a blessing, and I'm lucky, and all those things that you can add to it, you know. But as far as Red Dragon Cartel goes, I look at it. It's a solo band. It's playing with Jakey Lee. It's Jakey Lee's band. I don't know, you know. I'll be involved and I'll contribute as much as he wants me to, and I'll be happy to be there in any capacity he wants me to be. And it's all up to him, you know. So.
Well, I'm kind of sensing a pattern here. George Lynch, Ace Frehley, Jakey Lee, and here's Anthony backing him up.
Yep. I'm wondering who the next guitar hero will be.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Well, Anthony, I don't know if you pay much attention to the music of your contemporaries out there, you know, the guys who were in your era per se.
Yeah.
But, your former bandmate George Lynch worked with Michael Sweet, and they released a record here, which is very solid. Have you heard it?
I literally clicked on the YouTube video for some song about 9/11. I lasted about the middle of the first chorus, and I turned it off.
Okay. just didn't do it for you.
No, not at all.
I see.
I mean, it just really bothers me because this year's the 25th anniversary of Wicked Sensation.
Right.
So I kind of shook a few trees, called Oni, I called Nick, I called Max Norman. Everybody was on board. Everybody wanted us to do another record, original lineup with Max producing, go out and tour the world once, just once, as the original lineup, play Wicked, the Wicked album, and play some songs off the new album, and then call it a day. And everybody wanted to do it. Everybody was excited. The fans wanted it, and George said no. So do I like the Matthew Sweet record instead of a new Lynch Mob record with the original members? You can answer that.
Right. I gotcha. Well, let me ask you another question here. Now, 2 years ago, my partner Chris and I had an opportunity to hang out with what, as much as it can be, the original lineup of Rat. And those guys were on fire, and they were doing so well. They seemingly did so well. We saw them open up for Van Halen in Wisconsin, and I hung out with them, with Eddie Trunk and Dokken and Lita Ford and, Sebastian Bach for a whole weekend. I traveled with those guys, and they were just on fire. But then after that whole thing, after that tour ended, I was getting back to the whole drama thing. The drama started with the stupid Facebook postings of Bobby Blotzer, to where it kind of chased Steven off. He was just like, fuck it, I'm done. I'm out of here. No more Rat. I'm finished. It's over. Well, you take a guy who has a paycheck, or a band that has a paycheck, and they're still drawing, a good crowd, and just destroy it. Just destroy it because you just can't keep your personal politics to yourself. Well,
I don't know what the situation was. I'm not privy to anything on that. I don't know. I didn't even know. Like, I knew Rat was touring, and I knew Juan was back in the band.
Right.
And I think they have Cavazo playing for Robin.
Exactly.
But I mean, I like Rat. I always would go see them with various lineups. I mean, I'm friends with Karabi, and I'm friends with Robbie Crane, and I know Warren pretty well. I've met him a couple times, and I know Steven pretty well. I met him a couple times. But I mean, I don't really follow them too closely.
Right.
But I mean, I would. I can only look at it in my situation, and I would never expect Lynch Mob to last more than one tour, the original lineup.
Right.
I mean, I wouldn't, and honestly, that's enough. I mean, but the fans want it, and I'm like, can't we ever just give the fans what they want? It seems like everybody does the complete opposite of what the fans want. It's like, now all you see is Facebook posts about Van Halen and no Michael Anthony and this and that. And it's like, can't you just give the fans what the fans are the ones that fuel the fire. They're the ones that put the gas in the tank. They're the ones that make it happen. And if they don't show up, you're nothing. And it's like, just, I mean, hear their voice, you know? It's like, I don't know.
Well, you're kind of making my point here where I was going with this, because just the other day it was announced that Bobby Blotzer now has put together a lineup of musicians, and he's going out performing Rat songs.
Yeah.
So you had the real thing with all the original members minus one, obviously, and you were out there performing, but then you sort of like pissed that away. But now you got another lineup, but now you're going to go out and play Rat songs in front of a club of 10 people. Doesn't make a lot of sense, does it?
I don't understand it, but I don't know the issues of why it all fell apart and unwound in the first place. So I don't know what the issues were. I can only talk about what I know firsthand, and there would be nothing. I mean, I love touring, and touring is a privilege, and you know, playing even bigger places is a privilege, and it's very hard right now to grow a crowd with these bands that are kind of coming back together to tour. You're not really going to go around a second time and get more people. It sort of deteriorates every time you go back, because people have seen you a year or two before and they're like, oh, I saw Lynch Mob, last year, but now Jake's coming through. He hasn't come through in 10 years, so I'm going to go see Jake. And you know what I mean is, my analogy is there's only a X amount of slices to the pizza,
right?
And pretty much every time you eat a slice, there's one less slice the next time you try to get hungry and go to eat.
Sure.
And it's kind of like we just got to be lucky and count our blessings that we can do this, and we still can tour, and fans do still show up, and they still enjoy watching and listening to what we do, which is great. And it's not like you're going to go back and double your crowd, and the money's going to get better, and the guarantees are going to go up, and you're going to come back through to the fifth time, and you're all of a sudden in arenas again. It's not going to happen,
Right.
So, I mean, it's kind of like you have to really count your blessings and enjoy the moment and enjoy the day and where you're at.
Right. Well, being that Red Dragon Cartel is fairly new on the scene, right. and that you're joining them here shortly, and you're going to go do some touring with them and whatnot. What is your ideal situation? I understand the whole playing in front of a crowd is an ideal situation, but would you prefer playing a club show, or would you prefer being, say, an opener on a major tour, say, opening up for like an Iron Maiden or something?
Okay, well, here's the deal. I love playing club shows, but club shows are no fun when that's what you have to play.
Right.
You understand what I mean?
Sure.
Like if you could sell out a theater and you choose to play a club for 3 nights because you like the hot, sweaty, overpacked room with the crowd right on top of you and people grabbing your leg while you're playing, and you're looking right into their faces and they're hearing your amp, not the PA, like that's an amazing moment. And I do love playing clubs. I also love playing arenas and festival shows too. But I mean, if I had to choose, if I could play anything, obviously you make way more money if you could play an arena because there's more tickets and you make more money.
Right.
But as far as just playing, I prefer smaller venues because it's more intimate and it's more of a moment with the crowd. Whereas like when you play bigger places, there's a camera pit and the first row is like 20 rows back and you don't really see anybody. You just see a mass of people, and then you have the lights shining in your eyes, and it's not very personal. It's definitely an art to be able to play a big place, just for that situation. But I prefer like being in a club and having them right on you and having them hear and them seeing your facial expression when you make a mistake.
Right.
You You know what I mean? Like, it's more natural, it's more human.
Right.
But when you have to play clubs, it can be very grim.
Sure.
And it's kind of depressing if you were doing arenas and then the only place that you could play is that small club. It's you're walking into that room with a different kind of attitude. You know?
Right, right. Well, are you bothered in this day and age with all the cell phones and the iPads and everything people bring to these? Don't bother you?
No, I don't care.
No, it does, you don't like, hey, no. Dude, I'm up here, not on your phone here. Look up here. I'm up here.
You know what? They'll look up when they want to, and you just gotta do things to make them look up.
Sure. Well,
but,
go ahead.
I don't know. It's kind of like, getting back to the Red Dragon thing and it being a new thing. The record came out less than a year ago, and 50% of the band's already gone.
Right.
So I don't know. Like, that goes back to it's Jake's thing, and I'm really curious on where, if I'll be on the next record, where the direction of the new record will be, and I kind of hope, I have my hopes where we'll end up the direction. And who will the singer be? Because the guys that we're using on this run are stopgap guys. I don't believe that they're permanent members, from what I was told. I know we have a guy on the East Coast run, and then we have a different guy on the West Coast run. And then I think we're kind of regrouping over the summer and figuring out who the guy is going to be that we go forward with. There's talk of playing Japan and Europe in the fall and the winter. So I'm just sitting back and watching the whole thing evolve and unfold and sort of take on a life of its own,
Sure, absolutely. Well, I'm happy for you, and I'm glad to see Jakey is back and out there playing again after such a long hiatus. And it's cool to know somebody who got an opportunity to get out there and play and perhaps make a difference or have some influence. And I'd like to see a band like a Red Dragon Cartel be the band that people talk about for the year of 2015 or the new record for 2016 or whatever the case may be. I'd like to see that. So good luck with that.
Well, thank you so much, and I hope that I'm involved with the next CD. I mean, that's the ultimate thing, is to create something that's going to be around forever and have your name on it. And I'm hoping that I'm not just going to do a couple months on tour and then be released. I would like to make a record with Jake and be on a record with him for eternity. And I'm just curious. Like I said, I'll be involved in it as much as he wants me to be.
Right, right. Well, you're one of those guys that we like to talk to on the show because you got the right attitude and the right spirit, and your heart's in the right place, and you do it because of the passion, and there's no attitude or ego about it. It's just like, hey, I just want to go out and play. Just let me play.
I'm getting to go out in 2 weeks, and I'm going to be able to play "Bark at the Moon" with Jakey Lee.
There you go.
I mean, how cool is that? Like, come on.
Yeah, seriously.
And Shot in the Dark, and Now You See It, Now You Don't, and like all those great Badlands, High Wire, and Dreams in the Dark. I mean, who wouldn't want to do that every night and actually get paid for it to boot?
Sure.
Like I'm a lucky dude.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Anthony, I appreciate you taking some time to talk to us here on the show and kind of fill us in. With
I got to go learn the songs now.
Yeah, there you go. So have you started learning? Have you started playing any of the Red Dragon Cartel songs yet at all from the CD?
It's different. I've listened to, obviously, I've heard the Ozzy songs a million times and the Badlands songs 500,000 times. The Red Dragon Cartel, I probably listened to the songs 10 times maybe. And, that would be pretty much in relation to how easy the songs are to learn because of how many times you've heard them. I think that I'm more of a closer player to Bob Daisley in the bass playing kind of technique, and the Ozzy stuff seems to be the easiest stuff for me to pick up. And to have to learn Greg's style and then learn Ron or whoever was on the Red Dragon record, it's just, you know, you have to do things that don't really, they wouldn't be the notes that you would reach for, you know, and it's kind of like you have to rethink things. But I mean, it's great, you know. I've never listened to them this deeply or had to learn them to play them. So you listen in a whole different way, you know.
Right, absolutely. Very cool. All right, Anthony. Well, again, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. And, hey, good luck with the gig and congratulations. And, you know, hopefully I'll get to catch one of your shows when you come through the Chicago area. So,
yeah, I think we're in there first week of June.
All right. I'll make a plan and be there. So, well,
sounds great. Thank you for having me.
Sure, absolutely. So, what should we play for you to take us out of this interview? Anything you'd like us to play for you?
Something I'm on, or something
it doesn't matter if it's influential to you or if it's something you're on. What would you like me to end the interview with?
Well, I don't know. I'm kind of learning a song right now off the Red Dragon record. I really like. There's a song on it called War Machine.
Mm-hmm.
That is it's very heavy. I dig it, and it's the bass player from Caius played the bass track on it, and I really like that tune a lot. So we might as well play that. Kick that one off.
All right, excellent. All right, well, go catch Anthony out on the road with Jakey Lee with Red Dragon Cartel when they come through your area. And we're going to end this interview with War Machine from the Red Dragon Cartel self-titled debut release. So here it is. It's War Machine exclusively here on your Classic Metal Show.